Hi everyone, welcome to our new video. In this video, we will explore the new features of React 19 that make our application smoother and easier than ever. So let's jump right in. So React 19 is the newest version of JavaScript library, known for helping developers create fast and interactive UIs. This version brings some several enhancements aimed at making our development process faster and smoother. Today we are going to explore the new features introduced in React 19, which bring some significant changes and improvements to the framework like React compiler, server components, actions, use API, context change, support for metadata, forward ref has been removed in this React 19. So the first one is React compiler. This is the most exciting of this. The new React compiler automates memorizations, which optimizes performance by reducing the unnecessary re-render. So now we don't need to use the use memo hook, use callback hook, and the use memo. So this means our app will run faster and smoother with less manual optimization. So let's understand this React compiler by some code examples. So before React 19, developers had to manually use the use memo hook to optimize re-rendering to the list of items here. So in React 19, the React compiler automates this memoization. We don't need to manually add use memo. React will automatically optimize the rendering process, preventing unnecessary re-renders. So the main benefit of this is to improve your overall app performance, but what's even better is that it removes the need for you to think as much as about performance. That means you no longer have used manually memoization tools like use memo, use callback, and use memo. Next one is the server component. So React 19 now includes server components, allowing parts of your UI to be rendered on the server. This helps improve performance, especially for large application by reducing the amount of JavaScript sent to the client. So we can see here with the help of use directive, we can render our component on the server side. So in React 19, server components will be integrated directly into React, bringing a host of advantages. First one is SEO. Server render components enhance search engine optimization by providing more accessible content to web crawlers. Next one is performance boost. Server components contribute to faster initial page loads and improve overall performance, particularly in for content heavy application. And the next one is server side execution. Server components enables executing code on the server, making tasks like API calls seamless and efficient. So there are new features introduced in React 19. First one is use API. Second one is use form status hook. Third one is the use optimistic hook, and the fourth one is use action state hook. So first discuss the use API. So this API will simplify how we use the promises, async code, and the context. So let's understand this use API by some code examples. So here fetch users is responsible for the get request. We are using the use hook to execute the fetch users instead of using the use effect or use state hook. The return of the use state hook is users, which will have the response of the get request, that is users. In the return block, we are using users to map over it and create list. So now we don't need to use the use effect for calling the APIs. We can directly wrap inside the use API. Next one is actions. With the new action features, React simplifies how you handle the server side operations. Actions help manage things like form submissions, data fetching, making it easier to keep your server side and client side logic in sync. The first one is use transition hook. Use transition can handle async functions, simplifying error handling and pending state management. So this allows state update to be scheduled without freezing the UI. So let's understand use transition hook by this some code snippets. So for example, you can use transition to handle the pending state for you here. So this async transition will immediately set the is pending state to true, make the async request, and switch is pending to false after any transition. This allows you to keep the current UI responsive and interactive while the data is changing. So the use transition hook can be used to make user experience smoother, like infinite scroll on data loader until the old data is not fetching. For example, if you have a web application that displays a list of items retrieved from an API, as the user scrolls down, the application fetches additional data to load dynamically. In that time, to make user experience smoother, we can use transition hook to handle loading state. So use transition is a hook that is going to tell React some transition are not priority or some updates are not priority as much as the others. Next one is the use form status hook. With the use form status hook, the child component can get information about form from the parent component. This eliminates the need to pass information from the parent to child component as a props, allowing for cleaner and more straightforward code. So use form status hook will give you some pending state, data, method, and actions. So pending, if the form is in a pending state, then it will be true. Otherwise, it will be false. Next one is data, an object implementing the form interface that contains the data the parent form is submitting. And the next one is method. So the this is a HTTP method like a get post. By default, it will be get. Last one is action. This is a function difference. So the next one is use action state hook. It allows you to update a state based on the result of a form submission. This is used to manage the state of the form. For example, if the form is submitting, if there is an error, we can, in that case, we can use the use action state. Let's understand this with some examples. Imagine you are building a form. Traditionally, managing form data, errors, and loading state can be complex. So, React use action state hook simplifies this process. Here is how it works. It handles the form data, keeps track of what the user has entered, detects errors. If something goes wrong during the submission, it displays an error. And next one is so loading state while the form is being submitted. It shows our loading indicators, connects the form to action. So link the form to a function that handle the submission. Next one is use optimistic hook. It lets you source a different state while an asynchronous action such as network request is in underway. This is particularly important in cases where user expect instant feedback for their actions, such as submitting forms or commenting on social media. By implementing the use of domestic hook, application can update user interfaces immediately, providing a seamless and engaging user experience. So there are some examples like we can use where use optimistic hooks like adding an item to a list, example to-do list. When the user clicks add task, the task appears in the list right away. If the server request fails, the task is removed from the list and an error message will be displayed. Next one is the deleting an item from a list, for example, shopping cart. So when the user clicks remove item, the item disappears from the cart immediately. If the server fails to the process, then the item is re-added to the cart and an error is shown. Next one is context change. Another change is like we don't need to use the context dot provider to provide a value to a context. It will now simply will be context. So context dot provider we don't need to use in React 19. Next one is support for metadata. These new features allow you to add metadata directly to your component. Metadata can include information like SEO tags, making it easier to manage content that's important for search engines and social media. This is something that we have always had to use a third party like React Helmet for unless you use to something like Next.js. This is going to make it much easier to manage metadata for SEO and social sharing. You can also put it anywhere in your component. It would work the same way in all environments, including fully client-side code and server-side code. Next one is ref as a prop. React 19 introduces the ability to access ref as a prop in functional component. So before React 19, we had to manually use the forward ref to access the ref as a prop. Now we in React 19, we don't need to use the forward ref. Ref can be passed as a prop, so no more forward ref is required in this React 19. Thank you all for attention. If you have any question or want to dive deeper into any of these topics, feel free to reach out.